Hello and welcome to Archaeologists Behaving Badly. This is episode 15.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad we clarified because I was going to say episode 3. No.
Definitely not third. No, definitely 15. Pretty sure.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll correct
it. If it's not.
If it's
not. But yeah, it's on China, which is a huge, totally massive subject.
Yeah, which we haven't really talked about much at all, except for
the terracotta warriors. I'm pretty sure you did a thing on that.
Yeah.
But I think that's it. And I did a little bit on episode 13. Or was it 14? I can't remember. A little bit about paleontology, but yeah.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it much. And as we sort of both discovered, there's lots of really, really cool stuff there, but not a lot of information on any of it.
No, or like I was really struggling and I didn't think it would be as hard to find stuff. And there was clearly stuff there or things that had been reported on, but just getting specifics on stuff, I just found it really difficult. Yeah. And I guess it just comes from what's actually being presented and being actually talked about and being reported properly, I guess. I don't know.
It doesn't seem like there's a huge amount of accepting external or international people studying archaeology there in to do work.
Yeah.
It seems to be kind of in-house and then they just monitor what's released publicly pretty tightly.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting. And there were so many things to choose from. Like, where do you start? Like, when you're just given, like, a broad topic like that. But I think we've got some pretty cool things to share. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm going first.
Yeah.
So have a sip.
Bring it.
Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about very briefly, which was just a tangent that I stumbled across while I was looking for stuff, is Antiquarianism, which is the study of the ancient past, and it kind of gave birth to archaeology.
Yeah. I guess how do you define that? I guess like for the people playing at home, like the lack of recording. I guess the difference between like antiquarianism and archaeology is the fact that you're not recording what you're doing, and you're just taking the cool, pretty, shiny things.
Yeah, or looking more at textual stuff rather than less of a focus on things.
Yeah.
And more of a focus on text. But definitely no
like methodology.
Methodology.
Yeah.
So in Europe, antiquarianism sort of began as an aspect of ancient Roman intellectual life, which I think we kind of know there was like an interest in stories that had come before.
Yeah.
And verifying them.
Yeah.
Or learning about the way people thought, things like that.
Yeah.
And then from the 15th to the 18th centuries, it progressed and expanded. And part of that was that there was more importance placed on national identity during that time. So studying the ancient world in particular locations played into sort of cementing national identity.
Yeah. Like, like countries and like city states and kind of cementing where your place is in the world.
Yeah, and that
authority.
Period is where there was much more interest on stuff, not just writing or stories. Collecting manuscripts, objects, and finding sites or places that could be connected with the narratives that had been told. In China, however, antiquarianism and a very early kind of archaeology began in the Song dynasty, which was between 960 and 1279.
Whoa.
So hundreds of years before Europe was kind of...
That's like early.
Yeah.
That's a surprise. I did not think it was going to be that early.
Nor did I.
thought
Like,
it'd be.
it was just this tangent that I was like, oh, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. And then clicked a couple of links. I was like, they were doing it way before.
Yeah, so like 1,000 years ago, that was something important to them.
Yeah.
Like learning about their own history, and that's so cool.
Yeah. And it started with the interest in reviving the use of ancient vessels in ceremonies of state ritual.
Cool.
So they
like,
would dig up much older vessels from sites, and then scholars or gentries would like study them as part of them being dug up so that they could then be used in.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So like reusing like old shit purely because it's like, I don't know, just because it's old and it's cool and you just want to keep
and
that
it's special and keep the tradition
alive.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So ancient artifacts would be unearthed. The scholar Wu Yangzhu, apologies, what we do every episode.
This is probably, yes, going to be one of the harder ones for us, I think.
So he analysed artifacts of bronze and stone that had inscriptions and preserved his study in a collection of 400 rubbings. There's also a document, I forgot to write the dates, but I think he was around late 900s, early 1000s.
Yeah, okay.
A document called Kaugutu, again, sorry, compiled around 1092, is one of the oldest known catalogues to systematically describe and classify ancient artifacts.
Oh my God, it's like the oldest like artifact catalogue. That's so cool.
Dumb thing that we deal with in our job. That's like very important, but very tedious.
Very tedious. We were just talking about that before.
Yeah, from 1092. It's one of the oldest.
That's so cool. Oh my God, I just didn't know that was a thing. I guess like, again, you always hear about Europeans, like European initiated antiquity, like antiquarianism.
Yeah, and I mean, we're a Western nation and everything we learn is pretty Eurocentric.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm very impressed.
It's very cool. And there was another catalogue compiled from 1111 to 1125 featuring around 840 rubbings, and that one was accompanied by illustrations.
What are rubbings?
Like where you, as a child, I did this at cemeteries, where you like
that's a whole different story.
Butcher's paper or paper over something and like rub it to create a print of whatever the inscription is.
Yeah, so like not Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Holy Grail, Indiana Jones. Isn't there like a bit where
I'm very aware of that film, but I don't remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, when he's like, when he goes to the catacombs or something with the German lady, and they're trying to find the sarcophagus or something underneath the library. Yeah.
I need to
X
rewatch
marks the spot.
That particular.
Yeah,
film.
and it's something to do with like, that's what it's called. That's a rubbing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'm with you now. And you
so
did
they
that.
were doing that. Yeah, I did that at cemeteries when I was like maybe 9. I would take big bits of butcher's paper and do rubbings of tombstones that I found really interesting.
That's so fucking morbid, but I love it. I love it. Oh my God, I would have been that weird 9-year-old doing that with you for sure if we knew each other. You
absolutely would have.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff is why we became friends in the first place.
That's so true. We are the same person. That's wild. And
yeah, so I just wanted to, it wasn't like my main topic, but I just wanted to talk about that because I didn't know anything about it. And it's really cool that, we don't talk about what an interest there was that they had in their heritage and recording stuff in a methodological way when we didn't start doing that until like 200 years ago.
Yeah, literally. They like got like 800 years of like a head start.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think I found that it kind of fell out of fashion after that. after the Song dynasty, but then for however many hundreds of years, but then they started doing it again.
So they were effectively looting their own, like, tombs, well, whatever, religious, I don't know, spaces or whatever, in order to procure those items.
Vessels, yeah.
Really cool.
State sanctioned looting.
Yeah, state sanctioned looting for sure. I don't know.
I mean, that's kind of what we do.
That's a very good point. That's a very, very, very good point. State sanctioned. Well, yeah, I guess, especially in consultancy where it's by law that we need to do our job. It's a legal requirement.
Which is just because it's going to get destroyed.
Yeah,
but also,
it's not like we're just actively finding cool shit for the sake of finding cool shit. But yes, the similarities they exist.
So my actual topic was talking about China's pyramids.
I do recall you actually did mention this, and I think this was like one of the first episodes we did. I don't know if it was like 1 or 2, but you did mention it very briefly.
Because I've heard of them, but never really looked into much about them.
I would love to learn more.
Well, lucky.
Lucky we're here right now.
And it is kind of hard to find information on. Like, if you just Google China pyramids, most of what comes up is videos, and most of that stuff is ancient alien.
Right, yeah. That's
early China was actually a colony from Egypt, like all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. There's not actually much that's talking about them seriously.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Which, again, is like what we were talking about earlier. It's actually really hard to find, like, legitimate sources. Data, like pure fucking data. It's actually hard.
It's almost impossible. So China has 38 pyramids that have not been excavated, and they are located in the Shanxi province, which is in central China.
Okay.
The most famous is the mausoleum of the first Qin emperor, so the first emperor of China. And that's about 1.5 kilometers west of where the Terracotta Army was found.
Okay.
And the Terracotta Army was for him.
Yes, that's what I thought, right? It's the same person, the Terracotta Warriors are, okay. Yeah.
So he, in 221 BC, unified all the warring kingdoms. Right? Like, he defeated all of them.
Yeah. And
so then he unified them into one nation.
Yeah, okay.
That's kind of remained what it is today.
Yeah, okay.
And so to memorialize his achievement, he built an insane mortuary complex, only part of which has been excavated. It encompasses, what's known of it is 56 square kilometres.
Jesus. Huge.
Most of which hasn't been excavated.
And that's just the mausoleum. That's not, is that just the mausoleum, or is that his
No, that's
city?
like the whole, the mausoleum.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's big for a mausoleum.
Yeah.
That's the size of a city.
Yeah. And the tomb itself hasn't been excavated.
Yeah. Isn't there like, I don't know, I think there's a lot of theories and a lot of like misinformation out there about it. But is it something to do with mercury? Isn't there something?
Yep, there's supposedly a system of mercury rivers to replicate or something China's river systems.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't write it down. I did briefly read at some point that there has been some sort of testing done that has indicated there's a high level of mercury in that area.
In that area, okay, yeah.
Whether that's true or not, who knows? But
yeah,
that's, and I don't know where the theory about the Mercury rivers comes from, if there's textual something.
Yeah, true. If there's like a warning. It's like we were talking about in the other episode that we did, like in tombs and stuff, you know, you've got the curses and the warnings, and they're like, do not enter here because there's this and this and this and bad things.
And I think that maybe has played into why his tomb hasn't been excavated.
Yeah. It's interesting.
And the terracotta warriors were found by accident by a farmer.
Yeah. I mean, that's generally how it works in archaeology in general. It's usually a farmer just stumbling upon something.
But especially somewhere that is actively not excavating stuff on purpose.
Yeah.
So the first mention of the pyramids in the West is from a 1667 book or paper or something by a Jesuit father called Athanasius Kircher, and he wrote about Chinese pyramids in China's Monumentus Illustrata, but they remained little known until the 1910s, when they were documented by traders and explorers or expeditioners who went through. And they wrote about the first emperor's tomb. So it seems like it's been known, at least locally, that that's what that was.
Yeah.
That was the first emperor's tomb.
Yeah.
And that the other pyramids were also tombs.
Right.
It's not been a mystery to
locals
about what it is.
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it? Like, you know, Westerners were just like, oh my God, like no one's known about these. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We've known about them forever.
That's what that is.
It's a part of our landscape and our environment and our life. Like, yeah. It's interesting.
It's definitely a different approach to monuments or history or whatever than what we've grown to think is normal.
Totally.
In 1947, Chinese pyramids were introduced to a wider audience when a US Army pilot said he witnessed a white pyramid during a flight from India to China, and he took a photo of it. Someone around the same time or a little bit later proved that it was the mausoleum pyramid of Emperor Wu of Han. So the Han dynasty, which came after the Qin dynasty.
Yeah.
So Wu was 156 to 87 BC, so not long after.
Yeah.
That pyramid is called the Miaoling Mausoleum, and that's the largest of all the pyramids. So
oh, wow.
The first emperor is not, the pyramid itself is not the largest, but I think they think maybe that the area that's covered is the largest.
Yeah.
But this one is the biggest one.
Okay.
And they think because the pilot described it as being white, which it's not anymore, they think that maybe it hadn't been, all of them are like covered in vegetation now, and some of them, we can put some pictures up.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say.
Very clearly, a lot of them are covered in cypress plantations that are, it's like very clear rows of trees that have been planted like in the last 30 years.
Interesting.
So, and that the reason they think that it was white at the time was that it hadn't been like covered yet.
Right,
in 1947 when he saw it, when he was flying across. So the Miaoling pyramid was Emperor Wu of Han's mausoleum. So the Han was China's second dynasty, and they inherited a bit of a challenge thanks to the first emperor's enormous tomb. So they had to build enormous mausoleums for themselves without bankrupting the nation and oppressing workers, which actually is what led to the downfall of the Qin dynasty after the first emperor died.
Okay.
His sort of legacy afterwards was that they
kind of fucked themselves.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And so they really didn't want to do that.
The second dynasty didn't want to do the same thing.
That's probably smart. That's probably the best way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to this date, no Han Emperor's tomb has ever been opened. They have excavated lesser Han aristocrat tombs.
Okay. Yep. But not like the main.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the emperors or empresses. And these excavations have revealed underground palaces.
Wow.
Massive sacrifices, like hundreds of horses altogether. I did find a photo of like one excavation that was like just rows and rows as far as the eye could see of horses.
Wow. So are they not excavating them out of like respect? Is that's
part of it?
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like if you know what's there, you know, I don't know. And if
I think I talk a little bit about it. It's like a combination of different things, we think.
Sure.
And the lesser Han aristocrat tombs also have demonstrated incredible preservation of corpses, like amazing preservation, because they encase the tombs in clay and charcoal that has like totally sealed them.
Wow.
Apparently a lot of the tombs have actually been looted in antiquity.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So in the Tang dynasty, there was a massive change in tomb design where they started creating shaft tombs into mountains with grave goods that were more symbolic of the afterlife rather than this enormous providing material things for the afterlife.
Sure, okay. Yeah. So less
to kind of stop.
Yeah, looting.
Yeah.
Like make them think that maybe it's not quite worth it. That's smart.
Yeah.
That's one way of like changing your ideas of the afterlife and just being like, well, actually, maybe we don't actually like
need all this stuff.
Yeah. Maybe if we just symbolize all this stuff, that's enough.
So what do we actually know about the pyramids?
We know
that they are attributed to emperors and empresses and other aristocrats. And in that sense, the region is sometimes called China's Valley of the Kings. And if you look at the region on like Google Earth, they're all kind of together in two areas.
Okay.
There are lots of pictures, like tourist pictures and stuff, of them from the ground, and they just kind of look like hills.
Like
but when
mounds.
You look at them from above, they're very clearly perfect pyramids.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of them have like truncated flat tops.
Yeah, okay.
And the theory of the cypress plantations on them has been either to protect them from view or to protect them from the elements.
I'm sure there's a million conspiracy theories out there.
There are a lot of conspiracy. There's a lot. There's much more information on the conspiracy theories than there is on actual data or what we really know.
Totally, yeah.
So supposedly the Chinese government and Chinese archaeological teams have stated that they are exercising extreme caution about excavating in order to preserve artifacts and features, as well as showing respect for the burial site. So it's this combination of strategy and foresight, as well as reverence for the ancestors and a sort of cultural or spiritual politeness.
Yeah. And I love that. I think that's like, that makes sense. I mean, if you're determined to not disturb them with any like, construction activity or anything like that, then you are leaving it for future, for future generations. And if that time, if there was any kind of like earthquake or any kind of natural reason why you would need to excavate it, then you can. But until then, like, I get that. I do get that. And we've talked about this so many times before. This always comes up. But it's like, some archaeologists don't like digging human remains and tombs and stuff because of their own personal, their own personal position on disturbing the dead and
especially the dead of heritage that's not
that's not
their
ours.
own.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, it's just like it's definitely like an ongoing thing, but
And there may be plenty of cultures, sites that we know a lot about that maybe if the people whose culture and sites it was had control of it, we wouldn't know a lot about.
Yeah.
Because they might have also preferred to protect and respect
100%.
those sites.
100%.
But we've just
come in there and with our trowels.
We want to know.
I know.
We want to find the stuff.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's an argument for any aspect of human history belonging to everybody. So it's
the ethical issues are real.
Yeah.
And it's like a circle. Yeah.
And there are arguments for both.
100%.
Both sides. Another website I found said that the Chinese government has said that we don't yet have the technology to excavate the sites without damaging the contents. I can't verify whether or not they actually said that. But if it's true and that's played into it, it's a really understandable stance to take. If you think about oops.
No, that's me. Sorry.
Is that you? If you think about Tutankhamun's tomb or Troy or obviously our methods and approach has changed a lot in the last 100 years. But if you think about how many sites have been excavated and how much information has been lost because of the
poor methodology
of excavation and because of the best technology at the time.
100%.
Which, sure, we have much better technology now, but
who's to say?
It the best it's going to get?
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense. Why not wait until we can do it without destroying anything, if that's one day possible?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's exactly it. Right now, we think we've got the best technology, but who's to say in 100 years' time we have methodology that just completely changes the game in terms of archaeological excavation and recording?
Yeah. So it can seem, I don't know, at first glance, especially looking at the more conspiracy type stuff, it can seem like, China's keeping some massive secret about the Chinese pyramids. But actually, it's a cultural and spiritual decision and actually potentially just wanting to protect what they've got in a way that we haven't protected anything we've got, or parts of the rest of the world where we've just kind of swanned in and stuck dynamite in the ground to look for stuff.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of all I had on the Chinese pyramids.
I love it. I didn't know. So 38 in that, and just in that region.
Yeah, I think they're the only ones, because there was the shift from doing the pyramid mausoleum thing to different types of tombs.
Yeah.
So I think that's all that exists because they stopped.
Yeah.
But
I love it. That was awesome.
Really interesting.
It is really interesting.
Okay. Your turn now.
My turn now. And as I said, it was really weirdly hard to find stuff. There were so many interesting things coming up when I was researching the stuff. But I really struggled to get some pretty clear data, at least on surface level.
Yeah.
I didn't delve too deep, but I expected there to be a lot more, and there just wasn't. But what did grasp me in all this researching was a potential underwater city that was found in the Fujian, I think it's Fujian Lake, The Fujian Lake stretches out through Chengyang, Yangchuan, and Huaning counties in the Yunnan province, spanning across the area of like 212 square kilometers. That's the lake itself.
Cool.
So I think in the late 90s, fishermen had been reporting that they were finding stuff, like divers, like just people living there
Yeah.
in that area had reported like finding structural like features. So in 2001, initial excavations and reports described that earthenware and stonework was identified underwater at the Fujian Lake,
So cool.
covering an area approximately 2.7 square kilometers.
Cool.
Which is huge for like structural features, basically looking like a city.
Yeah.
So it was a multidisciplinary kind of effort. They had archaeologists, historians, as well as just like cultural experts, like that really familiar with the Yunnan province. So they used sonar surveying, as well as submersibles, like, you know, those little like submarine robot thingies, to record, as well as divers, obviously, to record this like underwater city.
Whenever I hear the word submersible, I think of, were you ever a fan of Tintin comics?
I wasn't. Well,
Not so
I know
much.
of them, but yeah.
Well, if any of you listening or watching, where I
I'm
always
sure
think
they
of Red Rackham's Treasure, and they go down in a submersible that like looks like a shark. Anyway, sorry.
Very cute. Also your favorite animals. That's cute. So some of the archaeology identified underneath the lake included like cobblestone surfaces, and I'll put some pictures up because it was kind of fucking mind-blowing. Cobblestone, streetways or surfaces, several carved stones resembling flowers, Yi Jing divination trigrams, as well as male and female genitalia, and depictions of both the sun and the moon. And I'm pretty sure there was other stuff. I was trying to cross-reference like 6 or 7 different articles, and some of them, they all had something slightly different to say. So I'm not 100% if that is all it or if people are misinterpreting. I'm not really sure, but out of the things that I could cross-reference, that's what came up. Whole like stone buildings were identified, jade carved objects like artifacts, stone tools, and ceramic sherds were also recovered, which provided like some of the archaeologists like insight into like the daily lives of the people that were living
Amazing
at this place. Yeah. And on top of this, which is so on brand for this episode, is a 5-story tall pyramid shaped structure. And I don't know if there's just one. I have a feeling there might be multiple, because some of the other ones, and I was looking at articles that were also out of China as well. And they were also reporting this, that there might have been multiple pyramids underneath there. But at least there is definitely at least one.
I don't know if I'm jumping the gun and you do talk about it. Did you see anything about like how long has this lake been a lake?
Yeah, so no, I didn't find that, but they did do carbon dating analyses on something. I don't know exactly what they actually carbon dated, but they think that it confirmed that the structures were dated to around 1750 years ago.
Okay.
So that the thing is though, I don't know what they were carbon dating, and I don't know the exact context in which that, but that
would have been around the same time or not that long after they'd started doing the pyramid mausoleums that I was talking about.
Right? Yeah, because that was around the
first one was 200 BC.
Yeah,
something like that. So like 500 years.
Yeah. So
difference.
Official records of the Han Dynasty, which you were talking about before, say that a city named Yunyuan was located by the side of the lake, and it disappeared from the official records after the Han Dynasty. However, contention exists on this because there are no historical records in the Chinese canon that a civilization or a city that had stone work was ever used. because other cities of like the Yuan kind of culture have all been made out of clay.
Okay.
And so it just doesn't fit. They're like, this doesn't sit well. How can you have a culture? How can it be the same culture if it's a completely different, separate
Right.
construction technique
Yeah.
from everything that they know about that culture? So it's a speculation that because the building features are made of stone, that the ruins are probably over 2,000 years old and belong to a lost civilization known as the Dian Kingdom. Some experts believe that from the structures underneath the lake, it's extremely similar to the construction styles of ancient Dian country. So they
Okay.
have found examples of Dian country elsewhere
Okay.
that kind of fit that kind of explanation, using stonework. So this country mysteriously disappeared, and they think it was because of an earthquake. At around 86 BC is when they think that the Dian country got like decimated or like ended.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's hard as well because they're taking this like through historical records and stuff, and there's always gaps, and so it's hard to like kind of place it. So the Dian were an ancient kingdom established by the Dian people, a non-Han metalworking civilization that inhabited around the Dian Lake Plateau of central northern Yunnan. They buried their dead vertically, and their language was likely one of a Tibeto-Burman language.
Mm-hmm.
The Dian culture started from at least the 8th century BCE until it fell under the control of the Han dynasty in 109 BCE. So it kind of so these dates are all kind of, that's why this is so contested, because the dates aren't really matching up.
Right.
But it's not that, we're talking about a few hundred years here. It's not enough to really be a wild speculation.
Yeah.
So I was also looking, one of the reports, this was coming out of a Chinese report, at the base of the pyramid or around the pyramid structure underneath the lake, that's underwater, they found these bronze, I don't know what they were, like bronze objects, which they believed had something to do with sacrifice. That's just what it came up. I couldn't find anything more on it. I kept trying to like find more, and I kept getting stonewalled.
It's very tantalizing.
I know.
I want to know a lot more.
So, so on the west of the Fujian Lake, apparently there are army patrols there, like day and night. And they're protecting an ancient battlefield, apparently. Again, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what I was reading from Chinese reports. And they found over 5,000 bronze castings in this area. And they've noted that there was heaps of lightning strikes in that area, and they think it's because of all the metal that's still buried. And so I believe that the army presence is there to like stop looting, but they have found, they've excavated at least 5,000 castings, bronze castings that are from, so these castings came from the late stage of the Warring States to the initial period of the Eastern Han Dynasty. So there's obviously like, I don't know, a lot of things happening here. We've got a lot of different players, obviously, in this area. There are also local legends of this area. An ancient fable has a description of people who sank together with the old city and now live underwater. Some people have said that when diving, they've spotted mummies standing in the lake.
Creepy.
And there have been heaps of UFO sightings, apparently. So then you get like, I don't know, then you get these like conspiracies kind of creeping in. I think I also read that a fisherman saw like a metal seahorse jump out from the lake or something crazy. I don't know. There's all these like fables and stories. But clearly, the local people that live in that area have known about this forever. It's like you were talking about the pyramids.
Yeah.
It's just a part of their natural landscape, their cultural landscape. And surprisingly, so there's been a couple of excavations happening here, at least 3. But it seems like with each kind of report that I read, they were like, but we're hoping for more we're hoping for more excavation to tell us more about it. But it seems to be, I don't know, it kind of fizzled off after like 2014.
Like for some reason they've stopped getting funding or something like that.
Yeah. But I think between 2001 and 2014, there were multiple efforts. But they were targeting, I mean, it's 2.7 kilometers, like square kilometers wide. Like they were only targeting, I think, out of the 30, there was something I read out of like the 30 stone structures, like structural buildings that they had first identified, they only like researched 2 of them or recorded 2 of them.
Yeah. Which
so
you can understand
totally.
the way we excavate.
Yeah, you can't do
in
all
the
of
modern
it.
day, it's very slow.
And it's also underwater archaeology. It's not easy. It's incredibly hard to do, and it has to be, and expensive. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting. It's something that I definitely, and they've like, and apparently when this first kind of came up in 2001 and then again in 2007, Chinese like reports were going wild, like speculating that it was like China's Atlantis and what else do they say? Like China's Pompeii, you know, like a whole buried city. But then, and then I just couldn't find
anything more.
Really anything more. And I'm like, this is huge. This sounds, anyway, I thought that was pretty cool.
Also, why, I mean, we say it all the time with a lot of stuff we talk about, but like, why have we never heard of that?
No, I know.
It's very recent and it's very cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's really exciting.
I know, right? Yeah. I'm definitely going to put some photos up and then maybe I'll give you a couple of links as well. And then there was like, again, then you get the conspiracies coming in, and then there was some pretty wild shit coming out of that.
Of course.
If you just like, if you just try and look for what we actually know, there wasn't a whole lot, but it seems like something I want to keep an eye on. Anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah. And another little mini thing that I wanted to talk about was there were 3 tombs recently discovered, and I think this was first reported in March 2024, so
very recent.
Very recently. Discovered in northeastern China. They were located in the city of Changxi in the Shaanxi province, and are from the Jin or Great Jin dynasty, which ruled in northern China between 1115 and 1234 AD.
Okay.
But the Chechen Jin rulers were not ethnically Han. The dominant ethnicity, which is the dominant ethnicity in China today, they were actually a semi-nomadic people from the northeast of China. So they were basically a group of people who had settled there, who had dominated there, who weren't like ethnically Chinese people as we know them today, or Han people as we know them today.
Yeah.
So the 3 tombs were found. They were actually found in November 2023, but I think by the time the information gets out, it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
During salvage operations in a northeastern district of the city, at some point the tombs had been damaged by looting, but all 3 were relatively well preserved and included painted murals, decorations, inscriptions, and epitaphs that are actually, it's beautiful. I'm going to put photos up. They look so cool, and they look very well preserved and very like they might have been looted, but they didn't destroy. It's still beautiful. So the Jurchen Jin rose to power amid rebellions against the legion's Liao dynasty in the 12th century and fell to invading Mongols in the 13th century. So they're only around for that really brief amount of time.
Yeah.
They were also the ancestors of I'm probably saying all of these things wrong, and I'm so sorry. I am trying.
We can only do what we can do.
We can only do what we can do. The Manchus, a later northeastern people who conquered China and Mongolia in the 17th century and ruled into the 19th century. However, a bit of an issue is that people have reported, at least, that Chinese official institutions and media are eager to show that the tombs are actually Chinese, not non-Chinese.
Right.
Um,
So that might play into...
So that might play into it a little bit as well. But the underground tombs were built with bricks and ornately painted with murals, decorations, and figures. I'll put it up. Two of the tombs were adorned with arches, doors, windows, figurines, and floral patterns, as well as inscriptions with detailed information about people, events, history, and geography at the time that they were made. So, like, very, very cool tombs. Like, this was a very exciting discovery. The third tomb, however, is painted in a very different style. Its chamber walls also imitate wooden structures, but the painted flora, fauna, and colours are markedly different from the other two, leaving archaeologists room for further interpretation. And so the differences in styles of the tombs may be a sign that different cultures coexisted under the Jurchen Jin rule. They were also called the Golden Carnate, a name that indicated it's a non-Chinese origin, and descended from Tungusic speaking semi-nomads from northeastern China. Their culture was very different from that of their Chinese subjects with regard to customs, eating habits, house styles, religion, and social organization. To take those differences into account, they ruled with two distinct administrative systems, one for the Chinese subjects and one for the Jurchen. So I think it's just a really interesting, find, because it can show that when you have people who have kind of come and invaded and who are occupying that space may have had two different social kind of operations depending on who they were, on the different people that were kind of a part of their, I don't know, I think that was really cool.
Well, even thinking about, like, that's 1,000 years after the unification.
Yeah.
Or like 600, 700 years after the Sunken, the city under the lake.
Yeah.
But like thinking about the unification of the warring kingdoms, like this is like multiple cultural groups that have been unified.
Yeah.
How many of them do you think were happy about that unification? So there's still, even though it's one nation for a really long time, there's still multiple cultures and players
100%.
and languages within that unification.
100%. And how do you exercise your power? How do you socially construct? I don't know. I think it's like interesting how basically they think that these tombs kind of show that there were two different ways of, I don't know, operating depending on if you were
one or the other.
Yeah. But they were beautiful tombs. I'll show you some photos.
Yeah, I can't wait to see.
Really cool. But yeah, there's a lot of politics and stuff involved. We won't get through that. But yeah, this is like a really recent discovery. Love that.
Also, no idea about it.
I know. 100%. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm particularly a fan of the city in the lake.
Yeah. I mean, China's Atlantis, like that's a selling point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to keep on top of that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see if there's anything more happening there. And it was funny because like each report that I was like reading, at the end of it, they're all like, well, we're hoping for more excavation soon. We're hoping that we'll get more answers. We're hoping we're going to get more answers. And then it just seems like there's been massive lulls. Like 2001, they did an excavation, 2007, 2014. But then there's just been these huge kind of gaps.
Which can be politics. It can be funding. It can be...
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, diving is particularly... Like underwater archaeology is particularly hard.
Yeah.
But I want to know more about these.
Yeah.
Like they were like full cobble services and full stone buildings, like which they thought was very weird for that area.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
Very cool. We love that.
Awesome. That was really good.
That was good.
We definitely have room to do an episode 2 on China.
If you have any like cool things that you've heard about that we should look into
Yeah.
about another, like our part 2 to a Chinese episode, like let us know.
Yeah, or other topics.
Or other topics.
Or we can flag now we're going to start a Patreon.
True.
And we're going to be doing a series of podcasts that will only be on the Patreon.
Yeah.
Where we talk about
contested
finds or conspiracy stuff.
Yeah.
And just sort of present the arguments for or against, or why different people believe the different things that they do about.
And I think like the point of difference is as well is that we're not going to be attacking either side, which I think most archaeologists naturally would do.
Or people who are presenting the conspiracy stuff or the alternative theories, they will just attack or discount academia.
Absolutely.
We don't want to say who's right or who's wrong or what we think. We just want to know why people believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And what evidence have they used to support those arguments?
Yeah. And we'll dig deep in these ones. Like we'll research pretty heavily on basically where these theories come from, how they support their theories.
Yeah.
And we're not debating it. We're just presenting it.
Yeah.
And I think
so you can make up your own mind.
Yeah. Like you don't need us to tell you what's right and what's wrong. Like
yeah. So yeah, if you have any ideas for that, that sort of stuff is like crystal skulls or aliens built the pyramids. Maybe not aliens built the pyramids, but like that sort of stuff. That's stuff that's like maybe doesn't fit in with mainstream chronology of things, or artifacts that have been found that
disrupt the kind of
and what people believe about them and why.
So that's really exciting. That's going to be really fun. So if you want to watch that, find us on Patreon. Archaeologists Behaving Badly. That's us.
It is
whether
you like it or not.
Anyway,
awesome.
This was a good episode.
It was really good. And we will see you very soon.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.